For millennia, Egypt's colossal pyramids have soared above the desert sands, bearing silent witness to a civilization shrouded in mystery. That enigma endured until the 19th of July, 1799, when a French soldier discovered a large stone about 35 miles east of Alexandria during Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian campaign. This artifact, later known as the Rosetta Stone, contained ancient inscriptions that helped scholars resurrect the Egyptian language, dormant for thousands of years, and ultimately unlock the secrets of an entire civilization. Egypt, the gift of the Nile. Herodotus, the father of history, famously remarked that Egypt was the gift of the Nile. Its waters were the country's lifeblood, providing a fertile corridor in which ancient Egyptians cultivated crops and supported the growth of thriving communities all along the Nile Valley. Over centuries, the river's annual flooding left nutrient-rich silt deposits that made Egypt one of humanity's first agricultural centers. By the end of the Paleolithic era, Egyptian communities were engaged in hunting, gathering, using sophisticated tools, and creating pottery. Radiocarbon tests suggest that wheat was already being harvested in silo complexes near the Fayum oasis between 4600 and 4250 BCE. Over time, people established permanent settlements, building huts of reeds and mud, and planting crops in the fertile soil along the Nile marshes. Ancient Egypt was traditionally divided into two regions, Lower Egypt to the north, where the Nile's many branches formed the delta, and Upper Egypt stretching south to Aswan. Around 3000 BCE, King Nama unified both realms, although each retained certain symbols like crowns, the Hedjet, white crown, for Upper Egypt, and the Dishret, red crown, for Lower Egypt. Pharaohs were then known as rulers of the two lands, wearing the pshint, a double crown combining these regal emblems. Predynastic Egypt. The predynastic period, circa 6000–3150 BCE, covers the time before recorded history, from the Paleolithic through the Neolithic age and into the founding of the First Dynasty. Although no written documents survive from this time, archaeological excavations have revealed artifacts, pottery shards, tools, and cultural items that convey key aspects of cultural development along the Nile. Scholars label predynastic cultures by the excavation sites where remains were found rather than by the society's own names. Among these early cultures were the Halfan around 30,000 BCE, which gave rise to the Kadan and Sibyllian cultures, and then the Harajah culture. All were hunter-gatherer groups that gradually transitioned to more sedentary, agriculture-based life. In the Fayum oasis, from about 9000 to 6000 BCE, communities farmed near a large lake, building homes of reeds, storing food underground, and domesticating livestock. By about 5000 to 4000 BCE, the Merimdi culture flourished west of the Nile Delta, underscoring the spread of farming as the economic backbone of what would become dynastic Egypt. In Lower Egypt, several successive cultures, from El Omari to Mahdi, employed more advanced building practices, created granaries for storing grain in clay containers or baskets sunk into the earth, and cultivated permanent settlements. Meanwhile, Upper Egypt saw its first significant culture, the Badarian, which eventually gave way to the more advanced Amratian, Naqada I, culture, circa 4000–3500 BCE, and later the Jurti, Naqada II, culture, 3500–3200 BCE. Naqada II initiated long-distance trade, spurring developments in craft production and architecture, including houses built with sun-dried bricks and courtyards. The city of Abydos began to serve as a major burial ground during this time, with large tombs forming a necropolis. Egyptians were already making use of rudimentary writing or hieroglyphs, most often found on pottery, bone, and seal impressions. Complete sentences, however, are not documented until around 2700 BCE, though the first steps toward record-keeping date to the Naqada III period, 3200–3150 BCE. Soon after Naqada III, the early dynastic period arrived, marking the dawn of recorded Egyptian history. Early dynastic period, circa 3150–2613 BCE. The early dynastic period commenced when Narmer, also referred to as Mens in Greek sources, unified Upper and Lower Egypt under a centralized government. During this time, the concept of the monarch as a divine ruler solidified, and core elements of Egyptian culture, writing systems, arts, and architecture, took shape. Narmer, circa 3150 BCE, built on earlier military successes and alliances, quelling uprisings in the delta and establishing trade ties with Canaan and Nubia. The kings who followed, such as Hoaha, Dje, and Den, expanded Egypt's territory and promoted infrastructure. Queen Mernith, spouse or consort to King Jet, stands out as one of history's earliest recorded female rulers. King Den, circa 2990 BCE, exemplified effective leadership by improving the economy, sponsoring major building projects, and confirming the unity of Upper and Lower Egypt through iconography that showed him wearing both crowns. Internal struggles eventually ended the First Dynasty with the brief, conflict-ridden reign of King Qa. King Hotep II took power, ushering in the Second Dynasty, which struggled with administrative and religious fractures. Figures like Peribsen turned from the Horus to the Set cult for reasons still debated by historians, while his successor Khsekhemwy re-established unity and paved the way for the Third Dynasty. The Third Dynasty, circa 2670–2613 BCE. The Third Dynasty begins with King Djoser, most famous for building the step pyramid complex at Saqqara. His architect, Imhotep, later deified as a god of medicine, designed this innovative monument by stacking mastabas to create the pyramid's distinctive tiers. Although the step pyramid was originally encased in stone carved to resemble organic materials, its primary chambers lay underground in a labyrinth of tunnels. Although looters eventually took Djoser's treasures, his step pyramid remains a testament to the creative genius of the age. Other pharaohs followed, further refining pyramid building and monumental construction, setting the stage for the grand structures of the Fourth Dynasty and the Great Age of the Pyramids. The Old Kingdom, circa 2613–2181 BCE, commonly called the Age of the Pyramids or Age of the Pyramid Builders. The Old Kingdom includes the 4th through 6th dynasties. Historians often rely on the architectural record, especially the iconic pyramids at Giza and the Great Sphinx, to interpret this period, as written sources are relatively scarce. During the Old Kingdom, Egyptian culture standardized many of its artistic conventions. Statues and reliefs show remarkable uniformity, while the pyramids demonstrate advanced state organization and engineering skill. At the pinnacle of the Fourth Dynasty stood the colossal monuments on the Giza Plateau. Pharaoh Sneferu, circa 2613–2589 BCE, is credited with perfecting the true pyramid design through his efforts at Myjum, the Bent Pyramid, and the Red Pyramid. His son, Khufu, built the Great Pyramid at Giza, a wonder of ancient engineering. Greek sources labeled Khufu a tyrant who enslaved his people to build his tomb, but modern archaeology suggests that a large, rotating workforce, often off-season farmers, received wages in food, drink, and goods. Khafre, commonly associated with the Great Sphinx, and Menkaure followed, erecting slightly smaller pyramids yet continuing the same tradition of spectacular royal tomb building. Nevertheless, these monumental projects strained state resources. By the time of the 5th and 6th dynasties, priests who oversaw mortuary complexes and religious cults were amassing vast wealth and influence. Pharaohs like Unas, Teti, and Pepi II struggled to maintain control over provincial governors, nomarchs, whose power grew in tandem with the temple revenues. Pepi II's extraordinarily long reign concluded with a disintegrating central government, and no strong ruler rose to replace him, ushering in the First Intermediate Period. The First Intermediate Period, circa 2181–2040 BCE. During this era, royal authority was fragmented. Local nomarchs effectively governed their regions, independently managing resources and establishing their own power bases. Although later Egyptian records painted this period as chaotic, some evidence suggests it was not a societal collapse but rather a shift to a decentralized model. The kings of the 7th and 8th dynasties, largely unknown, had minimal real power, leading rulers of the 9th and 10th dynasties to settle at Heracleopolis in Lower Egypt. Meanwhile, in Thebes, Upper Egypt, the Intif family rose to challenge the Heracleopolitan regime, laying the groundwork for reunifying the country. By the time of Mentuhotep II, circa 2061–2010 BCE, Theban forces toppled the Heracleopolitan kings, restoring stability and inaugurating the Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom, circa 2040–1782 BCE, although Mentuhotep II is often credited as the second Mens for reuniting Egypt, the foundation was set by his predecessors from Thebes. After victory, he revived a centralized government and promoted construction projects, agriculture, and trade. Subsequent rulers like Mentuhotep III extended Egypt's borders and sent expeditions to Punt, an almost mythical land of riches. A defining hallmark of the Middle Kingdom was co-regency. A ruling pharaoh might appoint a younger heir as co-ruler to ensure a smooth succession. The 12th dynasty is especially famed for its strong leaders such as Amenemhotep and Senusreti, who balanced the power of local governors and priests with the centralized authority of the throne. Senusreti improved irrigation around the Fayum region, while Amenemhotep III built massive structures like the Hawara complex, sometimes called the Labyrinth. Agriculture in the Middle Kingdom thrived thanks to sophisticated irrigation, which included dikes and canals. Tools like the shaduf, a manual lever and bucket system, helped lift water from the Nile. Two illustrations from that era reveal a vibrant agricultural scene, with emmer wheat, grapes, figs, and papyrus all grown in abundance, and livestock widely domesticated. Skilled crafts, beer production, and international commerce also flourished. However, near the end of the 12th dynasty, growing power among the clergy and certain nomarchs chipped away at pharaonic dominance. Female pharaoh Sabinaferu's death without an heir initiated the 13th dynasty, which lacked the strong leadership of its predecessors. While the kingdom did not completely collapse, its ability to maintain unified control diminished. The Second Intermediate Period, circa 1780–1570 BCE, as central authority weakened, a foreign Semitic group called the Hyksos gained influence in the Delta region, establishing their capital at Avaris and eventually dominating Lower Egypt. Meanwhile, in Upper Egypt, the city of Thebes held on to power but recognized Hyksos' control in name. On Egypt's southern frontier, the Kingdom of Kush took advantage of the situation, expanding through former Egyptian fortresses in Nubia. The Theban rulers, such as King Sekin-Enredau, finally revolted against the Hyksos. Sekin-Enredau died violently in battle, succeeded by Kammas who continued the campaign to expel the Hyksos. It was Kammas's brother, Ahmose, who definitively ousted the Hyksos, besieging Avaris, driving them into retreat, and marking the dawn of the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom, circa 1570–1069 BCE, sometimes called the Egyptian Empire, the New Kingdom reached unprecedented power and wealth. Ahmose reinforced Egypt's borders with fortresses and reclaimed territories lost in the Second Intermediate Period. His successor, Amenemhotep I, built on these policies, but the real transformation came under Thutmose, who launched campaigns in Nubia and into the Near East. Subsequent pharaohs, especially Thutmose III, often dubbed the Napoleon of Egypt, pushed the empire's boundaries to their furthest extent, conquering lands from Libya and Syria to the Fourth Cataract of the Nile in Nubia. Thutmose III is remembered for military genius, evident at the Battle of Megiddo, and extensive building programs. Queen Hatshepsut also played a central role during the 18th dynasty, commissioning monumental projects like her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, sending trade expeditions to Punt, and introducing a period of peace and prosperity. Religious architecture saw a grand flourish, notably at the Temple of Karnak in Thebes, dedicated to the god Amun. However, when Amenhotep IV, later Akhenaten, came to power, he controversially declared the sun disk, Aten, as the sole deity, shutting down other temples, including that of Amun, and moving the capital to Akhetaten, modern Amarna. Upon his death, the new religion unraveled. His son Tutankhaten, soon renamed Tutankhamun, restored Egypt's traditional faith and returned the capital to Memphis and Thebes. King Tut's early death allowed General Horemheb to seize power, ending the 18th dynasty and systematically erasing evidence of the Amarna period. Ramses I founded the 19th dynasty, followed by Seti I, who recuperated some of the empire's glory by refurbishing temples and pushing campaigns in Canaan and Syria. Seti's son, Ramesses II, the Great, ruled for 67 years, erected monuments across Egypt, and is famed for the colossal temples at Abu Simbel and the Ramesseum. He fought the Hittites at the Battle of Kadesh, 1274 BCE, and eventually negotiated the first recorded peace treaty in history. The 20th dynasty saw the last great New Kingdom pharaoh, Ramesses III, who defended Egypt from the Sea Peoples, mysterious naval raiders. His victory preserved the kingdom but exhausted its treasury, leading to economic distress and the first recorded labor strike in history by workers at Deir el-Medina. After Ramesses III, the throne passed through weaker kings named Ramesses, resulting in escalating tensions with powerful high priests at Thebes and culminating in the empire's gradual decline. The Third Intermediate Period, circa 1069–747 BCE, Egypt then experienced renewed decentralization, with rival power centers at Tanis in Lower Egypt and Thebes in Upper Egypt. Although there was no large-scale civil war, effective national unity dissolved. Libyan leaders like Shoshenkai rose to claim the throne and create the 22nd dynasty, stabilizing the country for a while, but eventually multiple regional kingships emerged. In the south, the Nubian, Kushite, realm strengthened and began eyeing Egypt. King Kashta, followed by Piyi, or Piankai, asserted Nubian domination from Thebes, conquering Lower Egypt and founding the 25th dynasty. Though Piyi returned to Napata, the Kushites remained overlords of a reunited Egypt until they faced the growing might of the Assyrians, who challenged Egyptian influence in the Near East. Late period, circa 747–332 BCE, the late period saw a series of foreign dominations, beginning with the Assyrians and continuing under Persian rule, the 27th to 31st dynasties. When Cambyses II of Persia conquered Egypt in 525 BCE, he initially ruled harshly, but Darius I adopted a more tolerant approach. The Persians were eventually ousted by revolts leading to a native Egyptian revival, notably under rulers like Nectanebo I and Nectanebo II of the 30th dynasty, who spearheaded major building projects and defended the land valiantly. But a renewed Persian invasion reinstated their control until Alexander the Great defeated Persia and marched into Egypt around 332 BCE. Although these conquests ended pharaonic sovereignty, Egyptian culture persisted. The practice of Egyptian religion, temple building, and a reverence for the Nile and traditional festivals endured well into Greco-Roman times. A legacy that lives on modern Egypt, in many respects, is an evolved extension of its ancient antecedent. The Nile remains central to life. Time-honored celebrations, like spring festivals, have roots stretching back to the pharaohs. Traditional foods echo ancient staples, and the Coptic Church preserves a final stage of the Egyptian language in its liturgies. Egyptians today take immense pride in this heritage, exemplified by recent grand processions transferring royal mummies to new museums and unveiling restored archaeological marvels like the Avenue of the Sphinxes in Luxor. The country continues to excavate new sites, and each fresh discovery adds yet another chapter to Egypt's millennia-old story. Even now, this land of timeless allure keeps casting its spell on the world, stirring the same fascination it has inspired for ages. Leonard James Promotions.